Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. It's funny how our brains work sometimes. I was just thinking the other day about a new hobby I picked up, woodworking.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and I had this immediate idea that a certain type of wood joinery, a specific dovetail, was just undeniably the strongest and most elegant too.
Right. Dovetails are classic.
Totally. And for weeks, I only sought out videos and articles that showed how beautiful and robust those dovetails were. I just dismissed anything that mentioned other joints or, highlighted their flaws.
Hmm.
I was so convinced I was right that I wasn't even testing other options. It was only when a friend gently pointed out some other equally valid and sometimes simpler methods that I realized, huh, I was caught in a bit of a loop.
Ah, the loop of confirmation.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Exactly. That tendency, that preference for simplicity over maybe a more nuanced truth, especially when it comes to testing our own ideas. Well, that's right at the heart of today's fascinating cognitive bias. Congruence bias? Okay, let's unpack this because it affects so much more than just, picking wood joints.
Absolutely.
Our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to untangle what this bias actually is. We'll trace its origins back to some really groundbreaking psych research from the mid-20th century.
Yeah, Watson's work.
Yeah.
Foundational stuff.
Right. And see how it subtly, or sometimes maybe not so subtly, shows up in our daily lives. And most importantly, equip you, our listener, with some tangible tools to, recognize it and avoid its pitfalls.
That's the key, the practical side.
Yeah. Get ready for some surprising insights, maybe some genuine aha moments, because by the end of this deep dive, you'll have a serious shortcut to being truly well-informed on this crucial topic. We're going beyond just definitions. We're diving into the mechanics of how our minds can mislead us and, crucially, how we can maybe steer them back on course.
And that's precisely why understanding these cognitive biases is so vital. I mean, in a world just overflowing with information, right?
Yeah.
Where conflicting viewpoints are constantly vying for our attention.
Nonstop.
Critical thinking isn't just a nice-to-have skill anymore.
Yeah.
It's absolutely essential. It's how we navigate all this complexity. Understanding biases like congruence bias helps us not just see what is happening when we or others make certain decisions,
Right.
but crucially, why it happens. It's about moving beyond just, surface-level observations to truly grasp the underlying mechanisms of thought.
The why behind the what.
Exactly. Which allows us to make better, more informed decisions, not just for ourselves, but in how we interact with the broader world. So as we delve into this, I really encourage you, our listener, to constantly think about how you can immediately apply this knowledge. How can you spot these patterns in your own thought processes?
Precisely. That self-reflection is key. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning then. What exactly are we talking about when we say congruence bias? It's a term that it kind of encapsulates a surprisingly common yet often invisible flaw in our reasoning. At its core, congruence bias is this persistent tendency we have to excessively rely on testing our initial hypothesis, that very first idea that pops into our heads, the one that feels most, well, congruent or fitting with what we already believe or see.
A comfortable idea.
Yeah, the comfy one. And here's where it really gets us. We tend to do this while actively, though often unconsciously, neglecting to test alternative hypotheses.
Right, we don't look sideways, just straight ahead.
Exactly. Think about it this way. Instead of designing experiments or, seeking information that could potentially disprove our initial belief, that could actually show us we're wrong.
Which is hard. Nobody likes being wrong.
Right. We overwhelmingly tend to simply try and repeat our initial confirming results. We're kind of on a quest for, yep, I was right, rather than, maybe there's another way to look at this.
It's that preference for affirmation over true investigation.
Yeah. Our brains, in their, magnificent attempt at efficiency, often take the path of least resistance, and confirming what we already suspect just feels more efficient than, venturing into the unknown of disproving something.
It's less cognitively demanding, for sure.
Now, you might be thinking, hey, that sounds a lot like confirmation bias, and you'd be absolutely right to connect those dots.
It's definitely related, very closely.
Yeah, congruence bias is actually considered a kind of special case of the broader confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is a, general tendency where people seek, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms their pre-existing beliefs. It's across the board.
It affects what news you read, what you remember from a conversation.
Exactly. It's about what information we consume and retain. Congruence bias, specifically, is how this shows up in the testing phase of hypotheses. It's when you're actively trying to figure something out, running a sort of mental experiment.
Hmm.
But you're only running tests that would confirm your first hunch, that primary idea you've kind of latched onto. It's a narrower, more focused application of that bigger cognitive tendency.
So it's confirmation bias specifically applied to how we test our ideas.
You got it. Here's a simple analogy to make it even clearer, maybe beyond my woodworking story. Imagine you're convinced that a specific path to work, let's say cutting through a particular park, is the absolute fastest way.
Okay.
It felt fast that first time you tried it, and now you're sold. Because of congruence bias, you'll likely keep taking that path every single day.
Just keep repeating the experiment that worked.
Right, and each time you take it, you'll pay special attention to how quickly you arrived, confirming in your mind, see, it is the fastest.
Yeah.
You might even mentally know, wow, that was quick today, even if maybe traffic was just lighter everywhere that day.
You're filtering the evidence.
Totally, but what are you not doing? You're not trying a different, equally plausible route to see if it's actually slower, which, by the way, would still give you useful info about the park route's relative speed.
True, knowing it's faster than that other route is still data.
Exactly. Or even more crucially, you're not checking if another route is actually faster. You're only looking for the evidence that confirms your initial idea about that park route. You're stuck in that loop, just confirming what you already believe rather than truly exploring all the options. You're kind of prioritizing the comfort of your initial belief over getting a more accurate, complete picture of your commute.
That's a perfect illustration. So subtle, but so powerful. And this isn't just some, abstract concept or a modern thing we've just noticed. The genesis of our understanding where this really came from is that groundbreaking psychological research by the British psychologist Peter Walson back in the 1960s.
Right. You mentioned him.
Yeah, this period was quite revolutionary in cognitive psychology. It was challenging those older views that human reasoning was always perfectly logical. Wason's work, especially his experiments in 1960 and 1968, really uncovered this classic example of congruence bias and fundamentally shifted how we understood, well, how people actually test their ideas.
So what did he do exactly?
The most famous one, the one everyone learns about, is undoubtedly the 2-4-6 experiment. It's a real staple in cognitive psych. Let me walk you through it because it truly illustrates the core of this bias and the almost like unconscious trap our minds can fall into.
Okay, I'm ready. 2, 4, 6.
Right. Wason would present subjects with that number sequence, 2, 4, 6. He would then tell them that this sequence followed a specific secret rule, and their task, their challenge, was to figure out what that rule was.
Okay, sounds simple enough.
The method was quite ingenious, actually. It gave subjects a sense of actively investigating. They weren't just guessing the rule directly. Instead, they had to generate their own number sequences as tests.
Ah, so they're doing the experimenting.
Exactly. They'd offer a sequence like, say, 8, 10, 12, or maybe 20, 22, 24, and the experimenter would then just tell them yes or no if their test sequence complied with the secret rule or not. This allowed them to actively test their theories, to feel like they were running their own mini-experiments. It was designed to mimic real-world hypothesis testing,
Makes sense. So what happened? What did people guess?
Well, here's the fascinating part. Almost universally, most subjects quickly jumped to the same, very intuitive conclusion. Their immediate hypothesis, your most congruent one, the one that just felt right based on 2, 4, 6.
Let me guess. Numbers going up by 2.
Bingo. The rule must be numbers ascending by 2. It just seemed obvious, right?
Yeah, it's the most immediate pattern.
And because of this strong initial belief, their testing strategy became, well, fundamentally flawed. Subjects overwhelmingly provided only sequences that fit their hypothesis. They'd offer 8, 10, 12, or maybe 3, 5, 7, or 101, 102, 104, all fitting the +2 pattern.
So they were doing that direct testing thing you mentioned, trying to confirm their idea.
Precisely. They were attempting to confirm their own belief, looking only for examples that fit their +2 rule. They weren't trying sequences that would break their rule, like 1, 2, 3, or 10, 20, 30. They were only trying to affirm it.
And what did the experimenter say to 8, 10, 12?
The experimenter would, of course, confirm that these sequences were indeed in compliance with the rule.
Ah, so they thought they were right.
Exactly. And why? Because ascending by 2 is a subset of the actual broader rule that Walson had in mind. So with each piece of confirmatory feedback, yes, 8, 10, 12 fits the rule, yes, 3, 5, 7 fits the rule, the subject's confidence in their own incorrect assumption just skyrocketed.
Oh, wow. So they felt like they were totally on the right track.
Absolutely. closing in on the answer, just needing to phrase it perfectly.
Okay, so then the big reveal.
The pivotal moment arrived when a subject, filled with confidence, built on this mountain of false positives, would finally offer their full hypothesis. Okay, I've got it. The rule is numbers ascending by 2.
And Wesson would say,
Simply,
yeah.
no, that's wrong.
Ouch. I can imagine the confusion.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine the frustration, the sheer confusion. This feedback often deeply confused the subjects. Some even argued, convinced their rule was just, misworded somehow.
So they didn't question the +2 part?
Not initially. Instead of rethinking their core assumption about that +2 relationship, they would then desperately try to change the wording of their rule without fundamentally changing its meaning.
Like what?
Like, they might propose even numbers ascending by 2, or numbers increasing by 2 with each step, or the difference between consecutive numbers is always 2. This stubborn adherence to their initial concept, even right after being told, no, that's wrong, powerfully demonstrated just how rigidly they were stuck on that first congruent idea. They just couldn't let go of their first mental model.
Wow, that's a powerful grip.
It really is. Even if some subjects, after being told they were wrong multiple times, tried to switch to a form of indirect testing sequences that didn't fit their +2 rule, they still struggled immensely to let go of the +2 idea entirely. Well, the sources even cite an example of a subject proposing a rule as idiosyncratic as the first 2 numbers in the sequence are random, and the third number is the second number +2.
Whoa. Still trying to keep that +2 in there somehow.
Exactly. It perfectly illustrates the powerful, often unconscious hold of that initial congruent idea, even when faced with disconfirming evidence. They were trying anything to keep that core +2 pattern alive in their minds.
Okay, so what was the actual rule? The suspense is killing me.
The actual rule Wazen was using, it was remarkably, almost frustratingly simple.
Lay it on me.
The rule was just list ascending numbers.
That's it. Just any numbers getting bigger.
That's it. Any sequence where numbers simply got larger, like 1, 5, 10, or 100, 101, 102, or even 3, 4, 1000 would fit the rule.
Wow. Okay. That is simple. And 2, 4, 6 fits. And 8, 10, 12 fits. But so does 1, 2, 3.
Exactly. And that's the power of this experiment. It laid bare this fundamental human cognitive blind spot. Wesson concluded that subjects failed to identify the correct rule precisely because of their fundamental inability to consider indirect tests of their hypotheses.
Tests that would disprove the +2 idea.
Right. They weren't designing experiments specifically designed to disprove their initial idea. If they had just tried 1, 2, 3 and gotten a yes, that fits, it would have immediately shown them that their +2 rule was too narrow.
Yeah, that would have blown it wide open.
It showed that our default setting is often to confirm, not to truly investigate, even when investigation would be more efficient.
That's fascinating. So if the actual rule was so incredibly simple, just ascending numbers, and yet almost no one got it because they were so fixated on their +2 idea, I mean, what does that tell us about how easily we overlook the obvious when we're committed to a specific path of thinking?
It's a powerful lesson in intellectual humility, I think.
It seems almost counterintuitive to avoid a testing strategy like trying 1, 2, 3 that would quickly yield the right answer. Why don't we intuitively use disconfirmation more often? It seems more efficient in the long run.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It feels safer, maybe, to stick with what seems right.
That concept of direct versus indirect testing is so crucial, and there's another great, even simpler illustration of it from that classic psychology text, A Study of Thinking by Bruner, Goodnow, and Austin. It really drives home the power of disproving.
Ah, yeah, the button example.
That's the one. Let's imagine a really basic scenario. You're in an experiment, and you see 2 buttons. The experimenter tells you, okay, pressing one specific button but not the other will open that door. Simple task, right? Figure out which button.
Straightforward.
Naturally, your brain, being the efficient thing it is, quickly adopts a hypothesis. Maybe you think, okay, it's the button on the left. The left button opens the door. That's your initial congruent idea. Feels right. Maybe it's closer to you, whatever.
Got it. Hypothesis. Left button works.
Now, a direct test of this hypothesis is exactly what you'd expect. You push the button on the left.
Makes sense.
If it opens the door, boom. Hypothesis seems confirmed. You were right. Feels good.
Confirmation achieved.
But here's where it gets really interesting and where we often miss a crucial point about the power of information. What if you decide to press the button on the right instead?
Okay, testing the alternative.
This is an indirect test of your initial hypothesis about the left button. Now, if the door remains closed when you press the right button, what does that tell you?
Well, if the right one doesn't open it, and only one of them does.
Then the left one must be the one that opens it. Exactly. So by disproving the alternative hypothesis that the right button opens the door, you thereby confirm your initial hypothesis indirectly. The door not opening for the right button tells you definitively that the left one must be the opener.
Ah, I see. So disproving the other option is just as good as directly proving your option.
Exactly. The key insight here is that the indirect test is just as valid and sometimes maybe even more powerful or efficient because it provides crucial information by eliminating an alternative. We often overlook that disproving is a powerful, often more definitive way of proving an idea.
We're wired to seek the yes, not the informative no.
Yeah. We're so focused on the positive confirmation, on finding evidence that matches our belief, that we forget the immense power of elimination, of ruling out what isn't true to reveal what is. It's like searching for a specific key on a giant key ring by trying every key that looks like it, instead of quickly eliminating all the keys that are obviously not it.
That's a great way to put it. And this brings us right to the underlying cognitive architecture, like, why do we fall for congruence bias? Why is this so deeply ingrained in our thinking, almost a default setting?
Yeah, what's going on in our heads?
Well, Peter Wesson himself, after observing these repeated failures in his experiments, he attributed them to a fundamental inability to consider alternative hypotheses. He pinpointed this not just as, a simple mistake people made, but as a more structural limitation in our typical reasoning.
So like a design flaw, almost.
Kind of. It's as if our brains are wired, maybe for efficiency or comfort, to confirm, not to actively seek disconfirmation. Because seeking disconfirmation often means admitting our initial idea was flawed, right?
Yeah.
And that can be cognitively uncomfortable, even threatening to our sense of competence.
Right, the ego gets involved.
Absolutely. Then psychologist Jonathan Barron takes this a step further. He gives a label to this flawed mental process. He suggests that subjects, and people in general, could be said to be using a congruence heuristic.
Okay, a heuristic, like a mental shortcut.
Exactly. A heuristic is just that a quick rule of thumb our brains use to solve problems or make decisions, especially when we don't have all the time or information in the world. They're usually efficient, they save us mental energy.
So how does this congruence heuristic work?
It operates as a pattern of thought, where a hypothesis is tested only by thinking of results that would be found if that hypothesis is true. It's a self-reinforcing loop.
Ah, okay.
You have an idea, and you only consider scenarios or pieces of evidence that would make that idea look correct. You're looking for alignment, for congruence between your test and your existing belief. It's that kind of, if X is true, then I should see Y, so I'll go look for Y thinking.
Got it. Only looking for the positive match.
Right. And the major flaw, the critical problem with this congruence heuristic, which, as Barron notes, many people seem to use instinctively, it's just our default, is that it fundamentally ignores alternative hypotheses entirely.
Doesn't even consider them.
Pretty much. It creates this closed-loop system of thought where disconfirming evidence is never truly thought out. Our brains are often trying to save energy and simplify complex realities.
Oh,
That's what heuristics are for, after all. But sometimes this mental efficiency comes at a steep price.
The price being accuracy?
Exactly. Accuracy and comprehensive understanding. We prioritize mental comfort and speed over thoroughness, and that's precisely where biases like this can really lead us astray. We end up feeling confidently wrong. It's maybe an evolutionary trade-off. Fast decisions are often good enough for survival, but for true understanding, especially in complex modern situations, we need more rigor.
It's truly remarkable, isn't it, how a cognitive shortcut designed for efficiency can lead to such pervasive blind spots in our judgment. And this isn't just something that happens in labs with numbers or buttons.
No, definitely not.
Congruence bias extends far beyond those academic studies. It's woven right into the fabric of our daily lives. It influences our interactions, our choices, our perceptions in ways we often don't even realize. It's not just lab experiments. It's like your life playing out every day.
It's everywhere once you start looking for it.
Let's take a really relatable example. The dedicated sports fan. We all know one. Or maybe we are one.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
Right. Imagine you have a favorite sports team, and you are absolutely, unshakably convinced your team is the best, destined for the championship this year. Congruence bias means you're far more likely to actively seek out and pay super close attention to news articles, stats, highlight reels that exclusively support this glorious narrative.
Looking for the good news.
Yeah. Monday, you're sharing that glowing article about your star player's amazing game. Tuesday, you read a report about a key injury on a rival team. Yes, more proof. Wednesday, you're cherry-picking stats to prove to your buddy how great your team's defense is, conveniently ignoring that game last week where they got shredded.
Sweeping that under the rug.
Totally. Meanwhile, you might subconsciously filter out, dismiss, or just quickly forget any information, negative stats, critical analyses of team performance, or, God forbid, the undeniable successes of rival teams that suggest maybe your team isn't perfect. You might rationalize a loss as just a fluke or bad refs.
The classic excuses.
Exactly. It's our brain's way of making things simpler, filtering out the noise that contradicts our preferred view. But simplicity isn't always accuracy, right? And in this case, it leads to a skewed perception, often setting us up for major disappointment when reality inevitably bites.
It protects the belief, but not necessarily aligns with reality.
Precisely. And a really powerful and maybe increasingly relevant example is how this plays out in our political views and, the echo chambers we can find ourselves in.
Oh yeah, this is a big one today.
Think about how voters frequently and often exclusively seek out news sources or social media feeds that consistently support their existing political stance. This isn't just about preference, it feels like active reinforcement sometimes.
You curate your feed.
Yeah. This continuous flood of confirming information powerfully reinforces their beliefs. It makes them feel increasingly certain that their viewpoint is the only logical or correct one. Someone might read article after article from a news site known to lean their way, nodding along, feeling validated.
Getting that rightness hit.
Exactly. Meanwhile, they're likely to dismiss, discredit, or even, outright demonize opposing viewpoints without ever truly engaging with the actual logic or evidence behind them. They might just say, oh, that's just that news source, you can't trust them, without even reading the article.
The source becomes the reason to dismiss, not the content.
Right. And just to be clear, we're not taking sides here, left or right. This is about the universal human tendency, observed across the spectrum, to gravitate towards what we already believe and pull away from what challenges us. And the result: these deep ideological divides where mutual understanding feels almost impossible.
Yeah, it fuels polarization because you stop seeing the other side as having any valid points at all.
Totally. And consider health decisions, too. That's a very personal, very impactful area.
Definitely.
If someone is convinced that a particular diet or health trend, let's say, I don't know, a specific superfood regimen or some intense popular workout, is incredibly effective for everyone.
The magic bullet.
Yeah, the magic bullet. They will likely focus heavily on testimonials and success stories from others who've tried it. They internalize those positive outcomes as undeniable proof. Look at Sarah, she lost 20 pounds on this, they might say.
Anecdotes become data.
Right. And simultaneously, they might overlook, rationalize away, or simply not notice any negative experiences, side effects, or maybe scientific evidence suggesting the diet isn't universally effective or is even potentially harmful for some people. They might attribute any initial good feeling, even if it's just, a placebo effect, solely to the new thing. And they might rationalize away any headaches or lack of energy as, oh, I'm just detoxing, or it's part of the process, rather than considering it might be evidence that this particular thing isn't right for them.
Yeah, explaining away the contradictory evidence to preserve the belief.
Exactly. And it even surfaces in our social interactions, right? Within group dynamics, leading to what some people call groupthink.
For sure. Happens in teams, friend groups.
Yeah. Within friend groups, professional teams, community organizations, people might naturally gravitate towards discussing only those topics that align with their shared beliefs and values. There's often an active, although maybe unconscious, avoidance of any subject that might create disagreement, introduce uncomfortable facts, or challenge the group's cozy consensus.
Don't rock the boat.
Right. Like a team discussing a new project might only focus on the perceived strengths and the rosy outcomes, and maybe subtly dismiss or ignore the person who tries to raise potential risks or suggest alternative approaches. Oh, Dave's always the negative one.
Yeah, marginalizing the dissenting voice.
And this fosters a comfortable, sure, but potentially really insular and narrow social bubble. It limits the diversity of thought, the perspective, and ultimately it can lead to less robust, less effective decision-making for the group.
It really does. And the practical utility of understanding this bias is just so clear when you see how it impacts our ability to make sound judgments and, frankly, interact effectively with the world. This bias can significantly impact how we make choices across all domains, often leading to suboptimal or just plain flawed outcomes, precisely because our informational inputs are so skewed.
We think we have all the facts, but we filtered them.
Exactly. We're making decisions based on incomplete confirmation filtered data, believing it's the whole truth.
Yeah.
And one of the most critical effects of this is just developing a limited perspective.
Right, the blinders analogy.
Yeah. By constantly focusing only on information that confirms what we already believe, we severely limit our understanding of a situation, a person, a problem. Think about a business leader who's absolutely convinced their new product idea is going to revolutionize the market. They might only read the positive market reports, listen only to the enthusiastic members of their team, and disregard or downplay any internal data, maybe negative customer feedback or competitor analysis that suggests, hey, maybe there are challenges here, or maybe the market wants something slightly different.
Ignoring the warning signs.
All right. This means they miss out on crucial, valuable insights, alternative data points, diverse viewpoints that could lead to demonstrably better decisions. Maybe a product tweak, a different marketing angle. It's like trying to navigate that complex landscape with blinders on, only seeing the path directly ahead that you expect to be there, instead of seeing the wider, perhaps more efficient, or even safer routes available.
Yeah, you miss the opportunities and the dangers.
Precisely. Furthermore, this bias can deeply entrench and even actively deepen divisions between different groups of people, whether we're talking politics, social issues, even dynamics within a workplace.
How so?
Well, when everyone is only consuming information that confirms their existing views and actively ignoring, dismissing, or even demonizing others who hold different perspectives, it makes genuine understanding, empathy, and compromise incredibly difficult, almost impossible sometimes.
Yeah, you can't find common ground if you don't even look for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Consider a community grappling with a local issue, maybe a controversial new development. If residents only seek out information from sources that align with their initial stance, either totally for it or totally against it, and refuse to even consider the valid points or concerns of the opposing side, well, productive dialogue just collapses.
It just becomes shouting past each other.
Right. And this raises that important question. How can we bridge societal divides if we're not even engaging with, let alone actively seeking out, alternative viewpoints? We become these little islands of certainty in a vast sea of complexity rather than contributors to a shared, more nuanced understanding.
That's a powerful image. Islands of certainty.
And a particularly dangerous effect, especially in practical terms, is poor risk assessment. This is where congruence bias can have really tangible negative consequences.
Oh, okay, how does that work?
If you consistently ignore or downplay evidence that contradicts your positive outlook on a situation, maybe it's a new business venture you're excited about, a personal investment, maybe even a relationship, or a health decision, you might severely misjudge the potential dangers involved.
Because you're filtering out the negative possibilities.
Exactly. For instance, an investor might be super bullish on a particular stock, maybe based on a couple of early wins. They get excited, so they actively ignore financial news or expert analyses pointing to its volatility or maybe some underlying weaknesses in the company. They just want to hear the good stuff.
Confirmation bias feeding the optimism.
Right. They're not seeing the full, unbiased picture because they're filtering out the warning signs. And this can lead to incredibly costly mistakes, not just financially, but in terms of well-being, reputation, maybe missed opportunities to get out at the right time. We're just prone to overconfidence when we only look at what confirms our hopes and dreams.
Okay, so this bias is pervasive, it's deep-rooted, it can lead to some pretty significant negative impacts. What can we actually do about it? This feels like the crucial part, right? The empowering part of our deep dive. What are the active strategies for recognizing it and mitigating it?
Yes, absolutely. Because the good news is, while it might be a natural tendency, it's definitely not an insurmountable one. It requires conscious effort for sure, but the payoff in clearer thinking is immense.
So where do we start?
Well, the initial and most crucial step, as highlighted by resources like Sywell and others in cognitive science, is profound self-awareness. It means truly looking inward and acknowledging that you, like everyone else, are susceptible to this. You have to learn to recognize when congruence bias might be creeping into your own thought processes.
Okay, awareness first. How do we build that?
They suggest some very concrete, practical steps. First, it begins with identifying your beliefs.
Making them explicit.
Exactly. Start by consciously articulating your core beliefs, your assumptions, that initial hypothesis you hold about a specific topic. Don't just let them float vaguely in your mind as, obvious truths. Try to pin them down, maybe even write them down.
Like, I believe taking Route A is always the fastest way to work.
Perfect. Or, I believe this investment strategy is foolproof. Articulating them clearly helps you see them more objectively as something to be tested rather than an inherent part of who you are.
Okay, so you've identified the belief. What's next?
This next one is arguably the single most impactful action. Actively seek contradictory evidence.
Ooh, the hard part. Lean into the discomfort.
Precisely. You have to intentionally go out and look for information, data, arguments, perspectives that oppose or contradict your existing beliefs. Don't shy away from it. Actively embrace it as a learning opportunity.
So if I think route A is fastest, I should actually look up traffic data for route B, or maybe even try route B.
Exactly. Or if you believe that exercise regimen is perfect, search for articles discussing its potential downsides, or look for evidence supporting alternative, equally effective methods. This isn't about proving yourself wrong just for the sake of it. It's about strengthening your understanding by rigorously testing the limits of your belief. If it holds up, great. If not, you've learned something valuable.
Okay, seek out the counter-arguments. Makes sense.
Next, reflect on your information consumption. Pay close attention to the types of information you typically consume. What news outlets do you read? Which social media feeds dominate your scroll? What kinds of books or podcasts are you drawn to?
My personal echo chamber.
Kind of, yeah. Does it consistently align with your beliefs? Be honest with yourself about your information diet. Are you diversifying your sources, or are you just mainlining reinforcement for your existing views? Maybe try subscribing to a newsletter from a contrasting viewpoint for a month, or intentionally seeking out a respected expert whose opinions often differ from your own.
Expand the menu, basically.
You got it. Then engage in discussions with those who hold different opinions. Intentionally talk to others who hold different viewpoints. And the key here is the goal. The goal isn't to argue or persuade them or win.
Not a debate club.
No, it's to genuinely listen and understand their perspective. Ask open-ended questions like, help me understand what led you to that conclusion, or what evidence do you find most compelling? This act alone can significantly expand your own understanding, expose you to new ideas, and challenge your assumptions in a productive, maybe even empathetic way.
Listen to understand, not to reply.
That's a great way to put it. And finally, it's about practicing critical thinking as an ongoing habit. Make it a regular mental exercise. Challenge your own beliefs routinely. Ask yourself, okay, does this belief still hold up when I look at this new piece of contradictory evidence? Are there alternative explanations I haven't considered? This isn't a one-time fix like taking a pill. It's an ongoing mental muscle you need to flex regularly. It's about building intellectual humility over time.
Like going to the mental gym.
Exactly like that.
Okay, those are great general strategies. You mentioned Jonathan Barron earlier, who talked about the congruence heuristic. Did he offer any specific tools, like heuristics, to fight back?
Yes, he did. Building on that awareness, Barron suggests specific, actionable heuristic sort of mental tools to prevent us from falling right into that congruence bias trap. These are practical, direct ways to design better tests for our hypotheses, whether they're big life decisions or just figuring something out.
Okay, tools I can use. What's the first one?
His first heuristic is what he calls the disconfirming question. This is key. When you're designing a test for a hypothesis, don't just ask the intuitive question, what would happen if my hypothesis is true? That's the direct testing trap Watson's subjects fell into, right?
Right, the +2 confirming tests.
Instead, consciously shift your perspective. Ask yourself this: how likely is a yes answer to my test if I assume that my hypothesis is actually false?
Whoa, okay. Flip it around. How likely is a yes if I'm wrong? How does that help?
The rationale here is powerful, and it feels a bit counterintuitive to our usual way of thinking. You want to choose a test that has a high probability of giving you a yes if your hypothesis is true, but critically, a low probability of giving you a yes if your hypothesis is false.
Ah, okay, so the test should really separate the true from the false cases.
Exactly. It helps you actively differentiate and eliminate incorrect alternatives. It forces you to consider the if-not scenario, the pathways that would actively disconfirm your initial belief, rather than just passively confirm it.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you hypothesize that a new marketing campaign will significantly increase website traffic. Don't just look for an increase in traffic after launching it. Also ask, if this campaign doesn't work, or if traffic increases due to some other factor like seasonality, what outcome would I expect from my measurement? Is my test maybe just looking at total traffic sensitive enough to detect that lack of effect or distinguish it from other causes? Maybe you need a more specific test, like tracking clicks from the campaign itself.
Okay, so it makes the test much more rigorous, more diagnostic.
Precisely. It makes it much harder to fool yourself with a simple confirmation.
Got it. What's Barron's second heuristic?
It's closely related. He calls it distinguishing alternatives. He advises, quite simply, try to think of alternative hypotheses. Then choose a test most likely to distinguish them, a test that will probably give different results depending on which hypothesis is true.
So don't just test my idea in isolation. Test it against other possibilities.
Exactly. It emphasizes the comparative nature of good testing.
Yeah.
It's not enough to simply find evidence consistent with your idea. You need to find evidence that is more consistent with your idea than with other plausible ideas, especially those that might seem similar on the surface but have really different implications.
Makes sense. You need to rule things out.
Right. And he provides a great example to highlight this need for truly distinguishing tests in, say, real-world medical diagnosis. Imagine a doctor trying to diagnose appendicitis.
Okay. Common problem.
Simply ordering a white blood cell count isn't the best distinguishing test. Why? Because, sure, appendicitis often raises white blood cells, but so do many other things. A urinary tract infection, a bad cold, food poisoning, lots of stuff. An elevated count doesn't really help you effectively distinguish between appendicitis and those other possible issues.
Right, it's not specific enough. It's confirming something is wrong, but not what.
Exactly.
Hmm.
You need a more specific, more diagnostic test that can really narrow down the possibilities and help rule out other causes. Maybe a targeted ultrasound or specific physical examination findings that are much more uniquely associated with appendicitis.
The test needs to point more clearly to one answer over the others.
Precisely. And this raises an important question for us in our own lives, right, Tom? When we're trying to figure something out, are the tests or inquiries we're performing truly diagnostic? Are they designed to really differentiate between competing ideas? Or are they just broadly indicative, confirming we're warm perhaps, but potentially leading us down misleading paths because they don't rule out alternatives?
Yeah, are we using a thermometer or a heat map? We need to be like that good doctor, always seeking the most specific and differentiating evidence we can find. Those heuristics from Barron are incredibly practical. They really shift the focus from just, finding support to actively, strategically differentiating between possibilities. And beyond those specific steps and mental tools, overcoming congruence bias, it sounds like, is also about cultivating an ongoing mental habit, maybe even making certain lifestyle choices about how you engage with the world.
Absolutely. It's about developing a consistent, proactive approach, not just a one-off fix.
So what are some of those broader habits?
One key habit is to actively seek diverse information sources and make this a conscious, sustained effort. Read articles, listen to news, consume content from a wide variety of viewpoints and media outlets, even especially those you initially disagree with or find challenging.
Your personal antidote to that selective exposure, the echo chamber.
Exactly. It's like intellectual cross-training for your brain.
Yeah.
If you typically get your news from one particular cable channel, website, or social media bubble, maybe spend a month actively checking sources with a different editorial slant. Read opinion pieces you know you'll disagree with. It's about broadening your informational diet, even if it feels, frankly, uncomfortable at first.
Embrace the discomfort again.
Yeah.
What else?
Next, question your assumptions continuously. Regularly, intentionally, challenge your own deeply held beliefs and underlying assumptions. Don't just hold them, interrogate them.
Put them on the witness stand.
Yeah. Ask yourself, why do I believe this? Is there really strong evidence to support it? Or is it based more on habit, intuition, or maybe just what I've always heard from people around me? What if I'm wrong? What would that actually mean for my understanding and for the decisions I make based on this belief?
That takes courage, I think, to really ask, what if I'm wrong about something important?
It does. And it's not about being indecisive or constantly doubting yourself into paralysis. It's about building beliefs that are robust because they've been rigorously tested and can actually withstand scrutiny. It cultivates intellectual integrity.
Okay. Diverse sources, question assumptions. Any other big habits?
And finally, engage with different groups. Actively seek out and participate in discussions with individuals and communities who hold beliefs and perspectives different from your own. Again, this isn't about winning debates or changing minds, yours or theirs.
It's about understanding.
It's about gaining a more rounded, nuanced, and comprehensive view of the world. It builds empathy, it broadens your intellectual horizons. Maybe join an online forum about a topic you care about, but actively seek out the threads where people are debating from different angles. Or attend a community meeting where viewpoints clash and consciously try to understand the rationale, the values, the evidence behind each argument, not just the one you walked in with.
So what does this all mean, really, for you? our listener. It means actively choosing curiosity and intellectual humility over the comfort and certainty of just sticking with what you already know. And that choice, that active choice, can truly change how you see the world, leading to more informed and ultimately less biased decision making.
And that choice, that commitment, brings us full circle, back to the profound value and the transformative potential of understanding and actively mitigating congruence bias. While our brains might instinctively prefer seeking confirmation, it's less effort, it feels good to be right, it avoids that uncomfortable cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, the easy path.
The most robust and frankly scientifically sound way to test any idea, whether it's a hypothesis in a lab, a strategy in business, a personal belief about life, or even a political conviction, is to actively try and disprove it.
Turn it upside down and shake it. See if it holds together.
Exactly. If an idea or belief can withstand repeated, genuine attempts at disproof, then its validity is truly strengthened. It becomes more resilient, more trustworthy, and crucially, more likely to be accurate. Knowledge is most valuable when it's not just held, but understood and applied. And critical thinking, which includes fighting biases like this, is absolutely essential in our world of information overload, where these biases can so easily lead us astray.
Yeah, without that critical lens, we're just adrift.
And the broader significance of understanding and actively addressing congruence bias really can't be overstated, I think. It enhances not just our individual decision-making skills and our potential for personal growth, but it also fosters a more open-minded, tolerant, and nuanced approach to understanding complex societal issues.
How so?
When we learn to genuinely consider alternative hypotheses, when we seek out disconfirming evidence, we actually contribute to less polarization. We enable more productive, more empathetic discourse in our communities and in the wider world. It's really a foundational step towards collective wisdom, allowing us to move past simplistic, often tribal answers and embrace the rich, messy complexity of reality.
It makes us better thinkers and maybe better citizens, too.
I truly believe so.
Absolutely. So, for you, our listener, here's maybe a thought to mull over as you go about your week. What surprising insights might you uncover about your own deeply held beliefs? Think about your health, your politics, your career, maybe even your favorite sports team. What might you learn if you consciously chose to actively seek to disprove them rather than just find reasons to confirm them?
What would you find in that uncomfortable space?
Exactly. What uncomfortable truths, or maybe even what newly strengthened convictions, would you learn from leaning into that discomfort? It's definitely a challenging mental exercise, but I suspect it's one that promises real growth.
Mm-hmm. Worth the effort.
And for those of you who want to dive even deeper into cognitive biases, critical thinking, how our minds work, we highly recommend some fantastic further reading. Definitely check out The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf DeBelly.
Great overview of many biases.
Yeah. And of course, the classic Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman.
Essential reading. Nobel Prize-winning work behind that.
Absolutely. And maybe something a bit different. Freakonomics by Stephen J. Levitt and Stephen J. Dubner, which shows how these thinking patterns play out in unexpected ways.
Yeah, applying economic thinking and spotting hidden patterns. All great choices.
They really offer fantastic pathways to explore how our minds work and, crucially, how to think more clearly, helping you become even more well-informed.
Keep building that mental toolkit.
Exactly. Well, thank you for embarking on this deep dive into congruence bias with us today. We really hope you'll take these insights and try applying them in your daily life to make even better decisions and understand the world and maybe even yourself a little more deeply.
Big question.
Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, and keep getting truly well informed.